The year was 2047, and Earth had never been more divided. Nations argued over resources, economies teetered on the edge of collapse, and humanity seemed stuck in a cycle of self-destruction. But all that changed one cold December morning when something extraordinary happened. In the middle of Siberia's frozen wilderness, a massive object streaked across the sky like a falling star. It wasn't a meteor. It was too big, too slow, and it didn't burn up as it descended. Instead, it landed with a deafening roar that shook the ground hundreds of miles away. By the time news crews arrived, the scene looked like something out of a science fiction movie. A colossal alien starship lay embedded in the icy tundra, its surface scarred and rusted, as though it had traveled millions of years through space. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a small city, and its design defied logic. Twisted spires jutted from its hull, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly despite the harsh daylight. People whispered about gods, invaders, or even divine punishment. No one knew what to think. Governments around the world scrambled to take control. Within hours, Russian forces cordoned off the area, calling it a national security priority. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel poured into makeshift camps nearby. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning every inch of the ship for signs of life. But there were none. The vessel appeared abandoned, its interior dark and silent. Initial reports suggested it might be ancient, perhaps centuries old, but no one could explain why such advanced technology would look so broken. Dr. Elena Voss watched the live footage unfold on her laptop screen, sitting alone in her cluttered apartment in Geneva. She sighed deeply, rubbing her temples. Elena was a physicist, once celebrated for her groundbreaking work on quantum energy systems, but after a high-profile project failure left her reputation tarnished, she'd retreated from public life. Now she spent most days teaching at a local university, trying to forget the weight of her past mistakes. Her phone rang just as she reached for another cup of coffee. On the other end was Dr. Marcus Hale, her former mentor and the man who had convinced her to pursue science in the first place. His voice sounded urgent. "Elena, I need you here," he said without preamble. "This is bigger than anything we've ever seen." "I'm retired, Marcus," she replied flatly. "Find someone else." "You don't understand," he insisted. "They're asking for experts who can handle unknown tech. You're the best we've got. If anyone can figure this thing out, it's you." Reluctantly, Elena agreed to join him. 2 days later, she found herself bundled in layers of thermal gear, standing before the alien ship alongside dozens of researchers. Up close, it was even more intimidating. The air hummed faintly, as if the ship were alive but sleeping. As they stepped inside, guided by flickering headlamps, the walls shimmered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift when you looked away. Elena's heart raced as she noticed something odd near the center of the ship, a faint pulse of light coming from behind a sealed door. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't dead. Not entirely. And deep down, she felt a spark of curiosity reignite within her. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to make things right again. But little did she know, unlocking the secrets of the ship would come at a cost far greater than anyone imagined. The alien ship was like nothing humanity had ever encountered. Its corridors twisted and turned in ways that defied logic, as if designed to confuse intruders. The walls shimmered faintly with shifting patterns of light, and the strange symbols etched into every surface seemed alive, pulsing softly as though watching their every move. For days, scientists worked tirelessly inside the vessel, trying to make sense of its mysteries. But progress was slow, painfully slow. Dr. Elena Voss stood at the center of it all, her sharp mind working overtime. She had been assigned to lead the team tasked with deciphering the alien glyphs. At first glance, they appeared random, but Elena suspected there was a hidden order beneath the chaos. Her intuition told her these symbols weren't just decorations. They were instructions. If only she could crack the code. Back at base camp, located miles away from the crash site, computers hummed constantly as AI algorithms processed endless streams of data. Elena worked alongside Priya Patel, a brilliant young specialist in artificial intelligence who had developed software capable of analyzing complex patterns. Together, they fed images of the glyphs into the system, hoping to uncover some kind of language or mathematical structure. For hours, nothing happened. Then, late one night, something changed. The screens flickered, and lines of numbers began scrolling across them faster than anyone could read. Priya leaned forward, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's recognizing patterns," she exclaimed. "Look, it's using quantum mechanics principles." Elena stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The glyphs weren't just symbols. They were equations, formulas written in an alien language that mirrored concepts humans had only begun to explore. It was as if the aliens had left behind a manual, waiting for someone smart enough to understand it. But understanding wasn't enough. As the team pieced together fragments of information, they realized the glyphs pointed toward a specific location deep within the ship, a chamber labeled only as the Nexus. According to the translations, this room housed the ship's central power source, a reactor unlike anything humanity had ever seen. If they could access it, they might unlock limitless energy. Word of their discovery spread quickly, drawing unwanted attention. Corporations, militaries, and rogue factions began circling like vultures, each wanting a piece of the alien technology for themselves. Hackers attempted to breach Project Prometheus' secure servers, while armed mercenaries probed the perimeter of the crash site. Tensions rose as governments accused one another of sabotage. Amid the chaos, Elena remained focused. She knew time was running out. Every second wasted debating ethics or politics brought them closer to disaster. One evening, after another long day of work, she decided to take matters into her own hands. With Priya's help, she bypassed the security protocols guarding restricted areas of the ship. They moved cautiously through dimly lit hallways until they reached the sealed door leading to the Nexus chamber. When Elena touched the control panel beside the door, holographic projections sprang to life around her. Complex diagrams floated in midair, showing intricate schematics of what looked like a massive reactor core. Her breath caught in her throat. This was it, the heart of the ship, the key to untold power. But as she studied the designs, a nagging thought crept into her mind. Why would the aliens leave such advanced technology behind? Was it a gift or a trap? And if activating the Nexus came with unforeseen consequences, was humanity ready to face them? Before she could dwell on those questions, alarms blared throughout the ship. Someone had noticed their unauthorized entry. Guards rushed toward their position, shouting orders over radios. Elena exchanged a worried glance with Priya. They had uncovered the truth, but now they had to survive long enough to share it. Little did they know, the real challenges were just beginning. Elena's heart raced as the alarms blared through the alien ship. The holographic projections around her flickered and dimmed, but not before she caught one last glimpse of the schematics for the Nexus reactor. It was unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. A swirling mass of energy contained within a lattice of glowing conduits, pulsing with an eerie blue light. She knew they couldn't leave now. Not when they were so close to unlocking its secrets. "Quick, cover me," Elena whispered to Priya, who nodded nervously. Together, they ducked behind a jagged wall of metallic panels as footsteps echoed down the corridor. Guards shouted orders in Russian, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. Time was running out. Elena turned back to the control panel beside the sealed door. Her fingers danced across unfamiliar buttons and levers, guided by fragments of knowledge pieced together from the glyphs. "If I can override the lock," she muttered under her breath, "we might be able to get inside." Priya kept watch, her voice trembling. "Elena, we shouldn't do this without clearance. What if? What if we never figure out what this thing is?" Elena interrupted sharply. "This could change everything, for better or worse. We have to take the risk." With a final press of a glowing button, the door hissed open, revealing a massive chamber bathed in soft, otherworldly light. The team stepped cautiously inside, their eyes widening at the sight before them. At the center of the room stood the Nexus reactor, suspended midair by invisible forces. Its core shimmered with waves of energy that seemed almost alive, shifting colors between deep indigo and fiery orange. "It's beautiful," Priya breathed, her fear momentarily forgotten. But beauty came with danger. The air crackled with static electricity, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Alina approached the reactor carefully, studying its intricate design. Based on the schematics, she deduced that the Nexus wasn't damaged. It was simply inactive, waiting for activation through a precise sequence of inputs. "We need to wake it up," Alina said firmly. "But we'll only get one shot. If we mess this up..." She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. Failure could mean disaster, not just for them, but for the entire planet. Using data from the glyphs and Priya's AI software, Alina calculated the exact sequence needed to activate the reactor. Each step felt like walking a tightrope over a bottomless chasm. One wrong move, and the whole system could collapse or explode. As she entered the final command, the reactor began to hum softly, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. Suddenly, the chamber erupted in blinding light. The Nexus roared to life, sending shockwaves rippling outward. Everyone stumbled backward, shielding their eyes as the reactor's core flared brightly, then stabilized into a steady glow. For a moment, there was silence, awestruck, stunned silence. And then chaos erupted outside. Massive electromagnetic pulses surged outward from the ship, knocking out communication satellites, disabling power grids, and plunging cities across the globe into darkness. Panic spread like wildfire as people realized something monumental had happened. And it wasn't natural. News outlets scrambled to report on the blackout, while conspiracy theories flooded social media. Governments accused Project Prometheus of recklessness, demanding answers. Back inside the ship, Alina stared at the glowing reactor, her mind racing. They had done it. They had awakened the Nexus. But the cost was already clear. Humanity wasn't ready for this kind of power. And as she looked around at her team, she saw fear mingling with awe in their eyes. Had they unleashed salvation or destruction? Before anyone could speak, the reactor emitted a low, resonant tone. A message appeared in the air above it, written in those same alien glyphs. Alina translated it quickly, her voice shaking. "You have awakened us. Prove yourselves worthy." The words hung heavy in the air, unanswered. Whatever the aliens had left behind, it wasn't just technology, it was a test. And Alina knew they'd have to face it head-on if they wanted to survive. The real journey was just beginning. The message hovered in the air, glowing faintly against the backdrop of the humming Nexus reactor. "You have awakened us. Prove yourselves worthy." The words sent a chill down everyone's spine. Who, or what, was speaking? Was it the ship itself, some kind of artificial intelligence left behind by the aliens, or was it a signal to beings far beyond Earth, calling them back to reclaim their vessel? Alina stared at the glyphs, her mind racing. She had spent days deciphering the alien language. But this felt different. This wasn't just information, it was a challenge, a test. Her heart pounded as she turned to her team. "We've triggered something," she said quietly. "Whatever this is, it's not done yet." Priya Patel, ever the voice of reason, stepped forward. "What does it mean? Prove yourselves worthy." Worthy of what? Using the reactor? Leaving the ship alone? Her tone was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. Before Alina could respond, the reactor emitted another low hum. Suddenly, holographic projections sprang to life around them, filling the chamber with swirling images and symbols. It was like a tutorial, but one designed for a species far more advanced than humanity. Complex equations floated in midair, alongside diagrams of intricate machinery and cryptic puzzles that seemed impossible to solve. "This isn't random," Alina murmured, stepping closer to examine the projections. "It's a sequence, a series of trials. They're testing us." Lieutenant Ryan Cole, the head of security assigned to the project, crossed his arms skeptically. Trials. You think the aliens left behind a game show for us to win? This doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. Elena shot back, her frustration bubbling over. Think about it. Why would they leave such powerful technology unguarded? These trials are safeguards to ensure no species uses the Nexus without understanding its risks or consequences. Ryan frowned but didn't argue further. Instead, he glanced toward the door, where guards stood nervously outside. News of the global blackout had reached even the remote Siberian crash site, and tensions were high. If word got out that the ship was actively challenging humanity, panic would spiral out of control. Elena refocused on the task at hand. We need to start solving these puzzles, she said firmly. If we fail, the ship might shut down, or worse, self-destruct. We don't know what happens if we lose. The first trial appeared before them, a floating grid of interconnected nodes, each glowing faintly. Touching one node caused others to light up in patterns too fast to follow. The goal was unclear, but failure triggered flashes of red light that made the entire chamber shake violently. After several attempts, Priya noticed something crucial. The nodes responded to sequences based on prime numbers, a mathematical concept universal across intelligent species. Mathematics is the key, she whispered excitedly. They're testing our ability to recognize universal truths. Working together, Elena and Priya mapped out the correct sequence, while Ryan kept an eye on the reactor's energy levels, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. When they finally completed the pattern, the grid dissolved into golden light, and the reactor emitted a soft chime. Success, but only partial. A new trial appeared immediately, this time involving shifting walls that rearranged themselves every few seconds. The team had to navigate through the maze-like structure projected within the chamber, avoiding traps that materialized out of thin air. One misstep sent a burst of energy surging toward them, forcing them to dive out of the way. As they worked through the challenges, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Were these tests automated, or was there a consciousness guiding them? And why did the stakes feel so personal? By the time they finished the second trial, exhaustion weighed heavily on the team. But there was no time to rest. The ship showed no sign of stopping, and neither could they. Outside, the world continued to unravel under the strain of the blackout. Inside, humanity's fate rested in the hands of a small group of scientists willing to risk everything to prove their worth. One question lingered in Elena's mind. What would happen if they failed? The team was barely holding it together. Exhaustion lined their faces, and the weight of what they were doing pressed down on them like a physical force. The alien ship had thrown one challenge after another at them, each more complex and dangerous than the last. But now, as they faced the third trial, Elena realized this wasn't just about solving puzzles anymore. It was about survival. The chamber around them shifted again, the walls dissolving into a shimmering expanse of silver mist. Suddenly, millions of tiny metallic particles erupted from the floor, swirling in chaotic patterns before settling into the shape of insect-like machines. Each one glowed faintly, its movements precise and unnervingly intelligent. They hovered silently, waiting. "What are those?" Ryan asked, his hand instinctively moving to the holster of his sidearm. He didn't trust anything about this place, especially not these things. "They're nanobots," Priya whispered, her voice tinged with awe and fear. "Advanced nanotechnology. I've never seen anything like it." Elena studied the swarm carefully. "They're part of the trial. Look, they are rearranging themselves." As she spoke, the nanobots began forming intricate pathways that twisted and turned like a labyrinth. But unlike a static maze, this one kept changing, shifting unpredictably every few seconds. A holographic message appeared above the swarm, written in the now familiar alien glyphs. Elena translated quickly. "Find the path. Adapt or perish." "This isn't just a test of intelligence," she said grimly. "It's a test of adaptability. We have to navigate through this maze while it changes constantly. One wrong step, and she trailed off, glancing nervously at the glowing bots. No one needed her to finish the sentence. Ryan stepped forward, his military training kicking in. "Let me go first. I can handle whatever comes our way." "No," Elena snapped, surprising even herself with her sharpness. "This isn't about brute force. Rushing in will get us killed. We need precision, careful observation. If we don't work together, we won't make it." Her words silenced the room, but Ryan's jaw tightened. He hated being told what to do, especially by someone who seemed so unsure of herself most of the time. Still, he nodded reluctantly and stepped back. Priya took charge of mapping the shifting paths using her AI software, feeding real-time data to a handheld device. Meanwhile, Elena focused on identifying patterns within the chaos. The nanobots weren't random. Their movements followed specific rules, though deciphering them required intense concentration. As they ventured into the maze, the stakes became painfully clear. Every misstep triggered an immediate response from the swarm. Once, when Ryan accidentally stepped onto a section of the floor that lit up red, the bots surged toward him like a tidal wave. Only quick thinking saved him. Elena shouted for him to jump backward, narrowly avoiding the swarm as it reformed behind him. Tensions flared between the two. "You almost got us killed," Elena hissed, her patience wearing thin. "And you're too slow," Ryan shot back. "We don't have time for your caution." Their argument was cut short when Priya interjected. "Stop fighting. Both of you are right, and both of you are wrong. We need Ryan's instincts, but we also need Elena's precision. Work together, or none of us will survive." Her words struck a chord. Reluctantly, Elena and Ryan agreed to combine their approaches. Using Priya's maps, they devised a strategy. Ryan would take point, reacting quickly to sudden changes, while Elena guided him based on the patterns she observed. Step by step, they navigated the treacherous maze, their teamwork improving with each passing moment. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the end. A glowing platform surrounded by the now still nanobots. The chamber vibrated softly, and the reactor emitted another chime. Success. But as the team caught their breath, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the trials were escalating. These tests weren't just challenging their minds, they were pushing them to their limits emotionally and physically. What came next might break them completely. And outside the ship, the world grew darker. Rumors spread of nations preparing for war over the alien technology. Humanity's judgment wasn't limited to the ship. It extended far beyond its walls. Time was running out. For everyone. The team stood in stunned silence, their bodies aching from the ordeal of the nanobot maze. The glowing platform beneath their feet hummed softly, and the alien ship seemed to exhale around them, its walls shimmering faintly as if pleased with their success. But Elena knew better than to celebrate just yet. Each trial brought them closer to unlocking the Nexus reactor's secrets, but it also revealed how little they truly understood. As the others caught their breath, Elena wandered toward a section of the chamber that had remained untouched until now. Embedded in the wall was a panel etched with glyphs unlike any they'd seen before. They weren't instructions or warnings. These symbols seemed personal. Curious, she reached out and touched the panel. Instantly, the room transformed. Holographic projections burst into life, filling the air with vivid images and sounds. It wasn't a puzzle this time. It was a story. Fragments of the aliens' history unfolded before them, showing glimpses of a civilization both breathtakingly advanced and hauntingly flawed. The first scene depicted towering cities suspended among the stars, connected by streams of light that pulsed like veins. The aliens were tall, slender beings with luminous skin and elongated limbs. Their technology blended seamlessly with nature, creating ecosystems that thrived alongside machines. For a moment, Elena felt a pang of envy. Could humanity ever achieve such harmony? But then the tone shifted. The next sequence showed devastation. Planets consumed by fire, oceans boiling away, entire populations wiped out. The aliens' mastery over energy had come at a cost. The Nexus reactor, once hailed as their greatest achievement, had grown unstable. Its immense power began to corrupt the fabric of reality itself, tearing holes in space and time. Alina watched in horror as the holograms revealed the aliens' decision to abandon the ship. They hadn't destroyed it. They couldn't bring themselves to waste such incredible technology. But they left behind safeguards to prevent another species from repeating their mistakes. The trials, the cryptic messages, the tests of intelligence and morality. All of it was designed to ensure that only a species capable of restraint would gain access to the Nexus. "This isn't just about proving ourselves," Alina whispered, her voice trembling. "It's about learning from their failure." Priya stepped closer, her eyes wide with realization. "They're warning us. If we misuse this power, we'll destroy ourselves, maybe even the planet." Ryan frowned, his usual bravado tempered by the gravity of what they were seeing. "So what do we do? Walk away? After everything we've been through?" "No," Alina said firmly. "We finished the trials. We prove we're better than they were. But we can't keep pretending this is just about advancing humanity's tech. This is about responsibility." Her words hung heavy in the air. Outside the ship, the world continued to spiral into chaos. News reports filtered in of riots breaking out in major cities, fueled by fear and misinformation about the alien vessel. Corporations and governments clashed openly, each demanding control of the project. Some called for immediate weaponization of the Nexus, while others argued it should be sealed away forever. Back inside, the team faced an internal struggle as well. Lieutenant Cole wanted to push forward aggressively, convinced that speed was key to survival. Priya urged caution, reminding everyone that one wrong move could doom them all. And Alina found herself torn between her scientific curiosity and a growing sense of dread. What if humanity wasn't ready for this kind of power? The holograms faded, leaving the chamber silent once more. As the team prepared for the next trial, Alina glanced at the reactor's glowing core. She couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens weren't entirely gone, that somehow they were still watching, waiting to see if humanity would rise to the challenge or repeat the same tragic mistakes. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: the hardest tests were yet to come. And the clock was ticking. The team's progress had been remarkable, but cracks were beginning to show, not just in their unity, but in the fragile trust that held them together. As they prepared for the fourth trial, tensions inside the alien ship reached a boiling point. The stress of constant danger, sleepless nights, and the overwhelming responsibility weighed heavily on everyone. And then betrayal struck. It started subtly. Files went missing from Priya's encrypted database. Equipment malfunctioned at critical moments, forcing delays. At first, the team chalked it up to exhaustion or glitches caused by the ship's erratic energy fields. But when Alina discovered a hidden data drive containing classified information about the Nexus reactor stashed under one of the workstations, she knew something was wrong. Confronting the team wasn't easy. Suspicion spread like wildfire. Ryan accused Priya of leaking data to her corporate sponsors, a claim she vehemently denied. Priya, in turn, pointed fingers at Marcus Hale, Alina's mentor, who had grown increasingly distant since the trials began. Even Alina herself came under scrutiny. Some wondered if her ambition had blinded her to the risks. The truth came out during the fourth trial, a deadly test involving a labyrinthine network of unstable energy conduits deep within the ship's core chamber. Activating the wrong sequence would trigger catastrophic feedback loops, potentially destroying the entire vessel and everyone inside it. The stakes couldn't have been higher. As the team worked frantically to map the conduits, Alina noticed something odd. One of the control panels displayed commands written in human coding language, not alien glyphs. Someone had tampered with the system. Her blood ran cold as pieces fell into place. Turning sharply, she confronted Dr. Thomas Reed, a quiet but brilliant engineer who had joined the project late under mysterious circumstances. "You did this," Elena said, her voice low but sharp. "You've been feeding information to someone outside." Reed hesitated, his face pale. Then, with a resigned sigh, he admitted everything. He had been coerced by a shadowy organization seeking to weaponize the Nexus reactor. They promised him riches, safety for his family, but only if he delivered access codes and schematics. Desperation had driven him to sabotage the mission step by step. Before anyone could react, alarms blared throughout the ship. Reed's actions had destabilized the reactor, causing energy surges that threatened to tear the vessel apart. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the walls groaned ominously as structural integrity began to fail. "We need to shut it down," Priya shouted over the noise. "If we don't stabilize the core, the whole ship will collapse." "There's no time," Marcus yelled back. "We'd have to manually override the conduits from inside the core chamber. And that means someone has to go in there alone." Elena didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." "No," Ryan barked, grabbing her arm. "It's suicide. Let me handle it." "This isn't up for debate," Elena snapped, pulling free. "You're needed here to guide me remotely. I'm the only one who understands the alien systems well enough to fix this." With no time to argue, the team scrambled to prepare. Armed with a makeshift radiation shield and instructions relayed through Priya's AI interface, Elena entered the core chamber, a swirling vortex of raw energy so intense it burned her skin even through protective gear. The heat was unbearable, and every movement felt like walking through molten fire. Using Priya's guidance, Elena identified the damaged conduits and rerouted the energy flow. Her hands trembled as she worked, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, with one last desperate adjustment, the reactor stabilized. The chamber fell silent, save for the faint hum of restored power. Elena collapsed to her knees, coughing violently. When the team rushed in to pull her out, they found her barely conscious, but alive. Though weakened by exposure to lethal radiation, she refused medical treatment until ensuring the ship was secure. Outside, governments and corporations continued their relentless pursuit of the Nexus. But within the team, trust had shattered. Betrayal had cost them dearly, and Elena realized that humanity's greatest challenge wasn't the alien trials. It was itself. And yet, despite everything, the ship remained active, its message clear: prove yourselves worthy. Time was running out, for Earth and for Elena. The final trial was unlike anything the team had faced before. When they returned to the central chamber, the Nexus reactor pulsed with an intensity that made the air hum and their skin tingle. The walls shimmered, dissolving into a massive holographic projection of Earth, not as it was, but as it could become. Cities gleamed under clean skies, oceans sparkled with restored ecosystems, and humanity thrived in harmony with technology. For a moment, hope flickered in Elena's chest. But then the image shifted. The utopia dissolved into chaos. Wars over resources, nations crumbling under greed, environmental disasters wiping out entire populations. It wasn't just a vision. It was a warning. A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. Prove you are worthy of this gift, or face your judgment. Elena turned to her team, her expression grim. This isn't about us anymore. This is about all of humanity. The trial unfolded as a simulation, placing them in a global scenario where different factions vied for control of the Nexus reactor. Corporations sought to monopolize its power, governments aimed to weaponize it, and rogue groups plotted to destroy it altogether. Each decision they made rippled outward, shaping the fate of billions. Priya monitored the simulation from a console, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Every choice has consequences," she said urgently. "We can't afford to act selfishly or recklessly. If we tip the balance too far in any direction, the whole system collapses." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. "So what do we do? Play nice while everyone else fights dirty? That's not how the real world works." "It has to be," Elena snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. If we let fear and greed dictate our actions, we'll fail. The aliens didn't leave this behind so we could repeat their mistakes. They left it to see if we're better than they were. Her words struck a chord, but the challenges ahead tested their resolve. In one scenario, they had to negotiate peace between warring nations threatening to unleash the reactor's energy as a weapon. In another, they faced corporate executives offering bribes in exchange for exclusive access to the technology. Each situation forced them to weigh morality against pragmatism, compassion against survival. At one point, Alina found herself arguing passionately against Marcus, who suggested prioritizing developed nations first, believing they could stabilize the global economy faster. That's exactly the kind of thinking that leads to inequality. She shot back. If we start picking winners and losers, we've already lost. Marcus hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. You're right. I don't know if we can trust humanity to handle this responsibly. Neither do I, Alina admitted quietly. But giving up isn't an option. As hours passed, the simulation grew more intense. The stakes felt unbearably high, and the weight of responsibility pressed down on them like a physical force. Finally, after what seemed like days, they reached a turning point, faced with the choice to either distribute the Nexus reactor's power equally among all nations or restrict it until humanity proved capable of using it wisely. They chose the latter, a bold move that required unity and transparency. To their astonishment, the simulation responded positively. The holographic Earth stabilized, showing signs of slow but steady progress. Conflicts eased, cooperation increased, and innovation flourished without exploitation. The reactor emitted a triumphant chime, bathing the chamber in golden light. A message appeared above it. You have proven yourselves. The Nexus is yours, but remember, power corrupts. Use it wisely. For the first time since entering the ship, the team allowed themselves a moment of relief. Tears streamed down Priya's face, while Ryan slumped against the wall, laughing weakly. Even Marcus managed a small smile. But Alina remained cautious. Outside the ship, armies gathered, ready to invade. The world wasn't united yet, and the true test of humanity's judgment still lay ahead. As the glow of victory faded, Alina whispered to herself, "Let's hope we're ready." The stage was set. Would humanity rise to meet its destiny, or crumble under the weight of its own flaws? Only time would tell. Years had passed since that fateful day in the alien ship, but its impact on humanity was immeasurable. The Nexus reactor, once a mysterious and dangerous relic, now served as the cornerstone of Earth's transformation. Powered by limitless clean energy, cities flourished without pollution, medical breakthroughs eradicated diseases, and space exploration became a reality for millions. Humanity stood on the brink of a golden age, but it wasn't without cost. Alina Voss sat alone in her office at the Global Nexus Institute, staring out the window at the sprawling metropolis below. The skyline shimmered with advanced technology born from the reactor's secrets, yet Alina couldn't shake the memories of the trials they had endured. She often wondered if the aliens would approve of what humanity had done, or if they'd see it as another step towards self-destruction. The team had disbanded after the final trial, each member carrying scars both visible and invisible. Priya Patel worked tirelessly to ensure the reactor's power was distributed fairly, battling corruption at every turn. Ryan Cole returned to military service, but found himself advocating for peace rather than conflict, haunted by the lessons he'd learned aboard the ship. Marcus Hale retired quietly, unable to reconcile his doubts about humanity's readiness for such immense responsibility. For Alina, life became a delicate balance between hope and vigilance. As head of the institute overseeing the Nexus reactor, she dedicated herself to teaching future generations the importance of restraint and unity. Power isn't a weapon or a prize, she often told young researchers. It's a tool, and how we use it defines who we are. But not everyone shared her vision. Powerful entities still sought to exploit the reactor for personal gain. Corporations pushed for exclusive access, governments demanded militarization, and rogue factions plotted sabotage. Despite these threats, Alina remained steadfast, bolstered by the knowledge that humanity had proven itself worthy, at least for now. One evening, as she prepared to leave the institute, a faint transmission appeared on her computer screen. It was unlike anything she'd seen before. A single word repeated endlessly: observe. Her heart raced as she traced its origin. It wasn't coming from Earth. It was coming from deep space. Alina stared at the message, her mind racing. Was this a signal from the aliens? A reminder that they were watching? Or perhaps a warning that the true test of humanity's judgment was far from over? She didn't have answers, only questions. But one thing was certain: the legacy of the alien ship extended far beyond Earth. Somewhere out there, among the stars, beings far greater than humanity awaited their next move. As Alina gazed at the night sky, she felt a mix of awe and trepidation. The Nexus reactor had given humanity a second chance to rewrite its story. But whether they would rise to meet the challenges ahead remained uncertain. In the end, the alien ship wasn't just a gift or a test. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's strengths and flaws. And as long as the stars shone above, the question lingered in Alina's mind. Had humanity truly changed, or were they destined to repeat the mistakes of the past? Only time would tell. And so, the story of the useless starship came full circle, not as an ending, but as a beginning.